All right, awesome. Well, Les, you've had an awesome story at Wealth. You joined the Limitless program. Was that at the beginning of the year?
It was during my back went out the weekend of Thanksgiving. So I joined in December, I think, or maybe, yeah, sometime in December, a few weeks after that happened.
Okay. And so you joined the Limitless program for a what you called a severe L5-S1 herniation. That's correct, right?
That is correct. It was miserable.
Okay.
Worst pain
Yeah,
of my
yeah.
life.
Oh my gosh, I know, I feel you. I had an L5-S1 herniation, so I don't wish that upon anyone.
Me
Why
neither.
don't you kind of just take me through that journey leading up to that L5-S1 herniation, and then what that looked like? I know you can go back as far as you want.
Yeah, well, I've always had sciatic nerve issues, like probably for, I don't know, I would say 8 years. And but it would come and go. It was like I would lift, I would be exhausted. And then my doctor would be like, oh, it's just, sciatic nerve issues, no big deal. And then usually I could like pop normal ibuprofen, take a few days off, and it would go away, or I'd do some stretches, whatever. So when it came, I kind of already knew like it's temporary. But before my back went out, it was, I got the pain and I was like, oh, here we go again. And then it
Sure.
just never went away. And then after a month of it staying consistent, it started getting worse and worse to the point I'm like, this shooting leg pain, like I have to, like, I'm not a person who likes to go to the doctor, but I'm like, I have to, like, I'm going to have to go. Um, so at that point, I was in such pain. And I, of course, at that point just assumed it was still my sciatic nerve issue. I'm like, maybe I just need some stronger medication to get it to go away. Um, and again, I was still lifting, I was still doing stuff, but lightly because my pain was getting so bad. Um, and again, I played sports my whole life. So when I had to deal with stuff like this, like me and you have talked about it, it's like,
Yeah.
like it's the pain, like whatever, I'll get through it. It's fine. But I was starting to be like, this is just a lot. I couldn't even sleep. So that's when I was losing my shit. So, um, when I went to the doctor, she was like, yeah, it seems like that's that. How about maybe you just need a steroid injection? Because it's so inflamed, probably that the ibuprofen's not helping. I'm like, cool, no problem. She gave me like a steroid shot, and I'm like, oh my god. 2 days later, I'm like, oh, it's gone, thank God. And then that was right before, yeah, my back went out. And then probably a week later, I was finally excited, like my pain's going away. And then I literally bent down to plug in my phone, and my whole back, like I didn't know what it was at that point. It just felt like a jolt through my back, and I was screaming in pain. And I'm like, this is something worse than just like my 8 years of sciatic nerve issue at that point. Um, and then I thought my life was over. So that's the story of it going out. But yeah, I've suffered from sciatic nerve, to answer your question, for years, but it was just minimal
Right.
until that happened.
Yeah, so it's just manageable. And then for you, being an athlete your entire life, I'm sure you probably had like the no pain, no gain mentality where it's just like, hey, you're used to that pain. And I know for me as well, I had that same process, but then you get hit with sciatica and disc stuff, and you're like, wow, this is like a very different type of pain to just endure. And I like to say too, like I think our members come in, like you switch that NO pain to KNOW. Like
Yeah.
it's great to be very mentally tough. And then also I think you want to be able to interpret those signals, which you kind of are forced to.
Yeah.
So that was, you dealt with sciatica for 6 years. Then that was like the most intense. What was like the lowest point of the journey? Maybe that came after. I don't know the timeline of like you having that really intense experience. Did you join Wealth right after? Or where was that kind of around your timeline?
Yeah. So I basically, and I just thought my life was over at that point. I'm sure you've had the same thoughts. Like when my back went out, and I've told this, I study psychology. I have a mental health practice. Like that's what I do. So I know a lot of it's mental, right? But at that point, it's like I did go down worse because my life is over. Like I couldn't, no matter what I did. If I laid down, I hurt. If I got up, I hurt. No matter what, it's like I can't be in this pain. Like I'll do whatever right now. So at that point, I was just like, what does this mean for the rest of my life? And I could feel my mental struggle start to come in with the physical. And then when I went to the doctor and I get my MRI back and they said that's what it was, I'm like, well, I don't want to have surgery. I'm 33 years, I just turned 33 at that time too. And I'm like, I'm still young and I still work out all the time. I'm super healthy and there's no way I'm about to go have back surgery. And I have my family history. Like my grandma had like 20 something back surgeries. It's like when
Oh,
she got one, she like kept going, was on a lot of drugs, a lot of pills all the time. And I knew like, I'm not entering that route at my age. There's no way. My mom had back surgery. My aunt had back surgery. So it's like, I saw the aftermath and I'm like, I'm not willing to do that. Um, but then I was nervous because at that point it seemed like, is this my only option? Because I can't do life. I literally was sleeping. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I was trying to sleep all day. And then the doctor was like, well, why don't we try PT and pain management and then surgery is last option. I'm like, okay. So I went to get an epidural and it helped. I'm not going to negate that it definitely helped the pain, but
sure.
it just took the excruciating pain in the sense of like, okay, now I can sleep a few hours a night and I can get some relief. But they were even telling me at pain management that it was so bad that they're like, you can only get a certain amount of these, and we doubt that you're only going to need one. You're probably going to need two the first round. So basically here in 2 weeks when it starts killing you again, come back and we'll give you another epidural. And I'm like, am I supposed to just go get these injections like for the rest of my life?
Right.
And then PT, I'm not against PT. I think it's a great thing because it's kind of what you guys' program entails, a lot
Right.
of that. But they wanted me to go 3 to 5 times a week, but then you're paying out of pocket too. Like I was paying out of pocket, at least my insurance wasn't covering it. So I'm like, I'm
Hmm.
gonna go pay $100 something a session for 3 or 4 times a week. So, and then the scheduling, I was just like, I don't know what I want to do. And then I found you guys. I was like determined to do research to be like, what else can I do? Because I know I'm gonna have to get surgery if I don't figure something out because my pain was so bad. And then I researched the shit out of you guys. And then a whole bunch of videos came up and I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
oh my gosh, I'm gonna like research more. I'm gonna like look into this and just reading some people's stories. And I'm a firm believer that the body heals itself too. So when you guys started
Right.
talking about that, and then I'm like, well, my mind went to, hey, it's gonna be worth it because if not, I'm gonna have to either pay for surgery and financially, or I'm gonna have to just do PT or go get these things. So I might as well try something to heal naturally.
Yeah.
And to be honest, and I know we'll get into like how it worked for me, I never expected it to actually work as well as it did.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think, obviously from our point of view, that's always the struggle. Like I had someone yesterday be like, I've seen so many great reviews, and I was talking to him on the phone. He's like, "What's the secret? Like, how is this like work?" And I was like, "I mean, we'll talk about that. It's like there's not really a secret. It takes work, and of course, we could talk about the entire ideology, but I think people are so apprehensive because there are a lot of things that are pushed as like the secret or the magic pill, and it's like, hey, this is not a magic pill by any means. Like it is, but it's not. There's a ton of work involved. For
Yeah.
you, it sounds like it was kind of like a why not would I do wealth, right? I think a lot
Right.
of other people struggle with that. So mentally speaking, when you came across wealth, that it just kind of felt like a good fit to you.
Well, I think what helped me is I do remember calling and talking to you on the phone, and
Mm-hmm.
like I just vibe with you in general, just because I was like, okay, I'm not an idiot. I am an athlete. I know how the body works, but like, tell me why. And there was just some stuff you said, and you said stuff about the program that I'm like, I agree with a lot of this, and I guess my mindset went to, if you have surgery, the recovery for that is crazy. So if I can be in a program from what I was reading too, which is the exact timeline of what happened to me, a few months and get through that pain, that's going to save me a lot of my life and a lot of my time. So again, why not? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and just I liked a lot of the stuff you guys like just stood for in the sense of again healing your own body. And I do just know once you go in and have surgery, I'm like that causes a lot of other issues. So I was more so I was willing to do whatever it took to avoid surgery. And I also knew the reality, it's not a quick fix. It doesn't matter if people think you're going to do the surgery and it's going to be a quicker fix, but That's actually the opposite. You're going to have stuff the rest of your life once you do a surgery. But I also knew, well, I'm going to have to do PT and recover after I would have surgery. So why don't I try something before at least? Because I really just was so against surgery.
Yeah, that's really interesting too. I mean, that you saw that within your family for what you didn't want to do, and I think I know Andrew when he had his 10 mil L4 L5, he talked about how I think his uncle has had 6 or 7 back surgeries, and within some of those surgeries they've botched them, and like they I think his uncle has a pump in like an electric pump or electrical pump or something like that in the back that releases fluid, or it might be a steroid, something like that. I actually have a friend who's my age and has had 4 back surgeries, and got like a stim blocker, nerve blocker. He has one right now, and like it's supposed to block the nerve pain, and he's a really healthy dude, but he's had 4 surgeries. And yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like, I'm sure there's probably merit for some of those. I don't want to, that's not my expertise, but I think when you see someone have 10 or 20 back surgeries, or you see like 1 out of every 2 back surgeries leads to another, or it goes down the line of like discectomy, and then you're fusing the spine and all these things. You're like, at what point in time does that end? And what happens after I have a surgery as well? Like, I'm still going to have to be very diligent about my rehab. Of
Right.
course, there's instances in which surgery are warranted, but I think a lot of times we jump the gun to surgery.
Yeah.
So that's incredible, at least that you were able to see that from your family point of view, knowing like I do not want to go down that path,
Yeah.
because I would say that's not very successful.
Yeah, it's not, and it wasn't fun for me to watch. And they all still have back problems too, and they didn't exercise. Like if I'm realistic
Right.
about it, I know, well, they don't live the life I live in the sense of they never really tried this. I never watched any of them, hey, let me do these workouts or let me strengthen my body. It was more like, well, the doctor told me to have surgery, so that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm like, of course, doctors, have to do their stuff too, right? I get that, and if that's what they
Right.
find best, but
Yeah.
um, I was just
Yeah.
excited because that's what I kept thinking is if I have to get surgery, like what does that mean for the rest of my life? And
Hmm.
that's a scary thought. And that scared me so much that I was willing to try anything else.
Yeah, and I think what's funny too is like you get into the Limitless program or the hypermobility program, and it's like I would say the most like down to earth, reasonable program. You can take your time going through it. It's not anything crazy to be like, wow, this is like you learn about your anatomy and you learn about these movement patterns. And the craziest part is just kind of accepting, hey, I got to put in 30 minutes a day or a few times a week, at least at the minimum, and it's going to take a few weeks or a few months to heal. Maybe that's the craziest thing, and we have to battle that narrative of quick fixes, or where people have this expectation that XYZ is going to fix them. So we kind of fight an uphill battle. Sometimes we fight that narrative too, where people come to us and they're like, hey, Google told me I need back surgery, or Google told me I'm never going to heal again, or my chiro or my doctor or my PT said this. Or for you, even like when you went to the pain management and they were like, it's so severe, like you're going to need this and this, you're going to need another injection. I think I want to give people the benefit of the doubt that it is well intentioned, but like those words carry a lot of power. It's great that you have, you say, a psychology background, right? So maybe you're able to detect what's being said and process that and be like, hey, I don't have to think like that. But you can see how some people really get in a tricky situation when they let those words or those beliefs define them, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I do, when they said that, I kept telling myself, I do agree I'm going to need these if I don't
Mm.
figure something else out. If I don't figure a way to heal my body, I am going to need pain management because I'm going to
Mm.
have to get rid of this pain. And I figured I would be back in there if I didn't. The thing I don't like medication like that either. So I think there's drug stuff that would worry me too. Um, but I purposely didn't go get the second epidural. Do I think I could have probably used it even when I started the program? I was like, maybe I'll go get another one to help me like not be as in much pain when I do the exercises to start. But then I was like, I tried to psych myself out to be like, well, maybe I need some of the pain to motivate. Like, reminder, it's still there. Like, you can numb it out all you want with the medication, but the reality is it's not gone, it's just suppressed. So if I can remind myself, I wake up, oh my gosh, I'm in pain. It started being my motivation, like, hey, that means you have to go get it done today.
For sure. I'm kind of with you there. I've never really been one for taking medication my entire life, or like, I mean, never taken Advil or ibuprofen or anything like that. That's just not my vibe. It's in my sense that like, hey, we're feeling these things for a reason.
Yeah.
I understand that that's not the intention, but like, even when I was having sciatica, and it was horrible. It affected my sleep. I at no point in time was like, I need medication or I'm going to do something to alter this pain. And I had it for like a full year. But again, that's just my mindset. I had the mindset like, it's kind of here for a reason. It's trying to tell me something. And like, I couldn't figure out what the path forward was. But once I started kind of having negative encounters with like a chiropractor in that path, where it seemed to be very limiting, like, hey, Cameron, you're going to always have these problems. I was like, I don't really know what my solution is, but I know what my solution is not. So I
Yes.
like just ran the other way. I was like, this is not the
Yeah.
bucket of time and people I'm going to go spend my time in. And then I think, like everyone, I found Andrew off of Instagram, and I was like, wait, disc herniation, sciatica, like the first person I'd ever seen online talk about that, be like, hey, I went through this experience. I got out of pain, seemingly lifting weights again and out of pain. I was like, I'm going to go and buy this online program.
Sign
So
me
that's how I got started with this, which is just, it's such a um, privilege to be able to have gone through my own injury and like connect with you. It means a lot when I'm able to talk to you like 5, 6 months ago, have my conversation just be a little piece of the puzzle, but then obviously you had to do the work. But it's just really cool to be able to like give back and then also learn what it was about your experience that is insightful, because there's a ton of people listening and there's so many more people like you out there who are dealing with this. You know, it's like wealth is barely just scratching the surface of how many people are up against like, do I go for surgery? Do I get another injection? Do I believe this? Is there something I can do?
Right. And you had the, well, I knew you believed in it because you told me your story, which is crazy because I felt you when we talked. So I was like, when you go through it, you have a different sense of what it's like, right? You're like, I know it sucks right now, and I know it seems like your world's over, and you're questioning if this is really going to help. And I do remember us nonchalantly when I was asking you questions, you're like, no, I went through it, I believed you so much that I'm like, I just have to believe that this is going to work, and I
Right.
have to train and I was on it. Like, this is going to work. And now it is interesting because when I've had anybody ask me, like, hey, you went through that program, how did you like it? And I was like, I believe in it so much now that I was like, I promise you, if you're patient with it, it's going to work. Like, I believe in it now. I went through it, and I believe in it because
Mm-hmm.
I went through it, but it's because I've seen it work and I've done it myself. So it's
Yeah.
crazy because somebody even asked me, I think somebody on the program had like reached out to me and asking me about like present day how I deal with it. I forget about it. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot I went through that. Like, I don't have pain ever at this point. So it's crazy.
Yeah. I think you got to, in the initial 6 months after, you almost have to like pinch yourself. And, you know, I think
Yeah.
I've been out of it for 6 years. So there's really, I don't really have any fear around anything at this point in time. But definitely, like, even within the first year or two after, where I was like, hey, I don't have pain, but like going back to CrossFit or just doing things where I thought were dangerous for my body, I had to break down those barriers. And I would imagine, I mean, have you found like, well, actually, I want to just pull it back. You went from extreme intense sciatica that was limiting your sleep. You're not functioning. You used to be very active. You're not able to do that. You are being told that surgery is, you know, the next option if you don't fix it, but they didn't lay out a plan for you to fix it. So essentially, if you just do the path that's recommended by the medical system, it's going to lead to a surgery, right?
Right.
And then you completely, you know, went off that path, joined wealth. long story short, from what I remember, it did take you a few months to actually like eliminate that sciatica, not have that nerve pain. Was it around like 3 months, 4 months? Like
Yeah,
how long did it take?
I think I had told you when we checked in. I think it was about the 3 months where it was like I still felt it, but it was like
Mhm.
occasionally. Like if I would miss the workout, if I would take 2 days off, it was interesting because my boyfriend would laugh if I didn't do it for like a day or two. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can feel it again. And then I would just keep going. But then after 4 months, I would say no pain. But at 3 months, I was like, I'm functioning and I know this is working because I feel good and I feel like I'm getting back. I was ready to lift again. I wasn't scared to do stuff. Um, but those first months, I was still perishing.
Yeah.
I think about people even entering my mindset when I entered the program. I was still like, this is gonna suck because the coming off of hard workouts, which is like something as athletes, at least we know,
Yeah.
it's like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this pelvic thing. And I'm like, I can't do it. Like what? And I would cry doing my
Yeah.
workouts. My boyfriend would have to come with me because I would start crying before I went because the mental struggle doing it sometimes for me,
Mm-hmm.
like I would have to get out of my head. I'm like, am I gonna actually be able to do this one day? Like I can't even do a pelvic tilt
Mm-hmm.
without wanting to cry while I'm doing it. And for weeks and weeks, it was like, oh my gosh. Every time, what are those exercises that killed me? It was like the um,
Knee cars, probably.
knee cars. Yes, those
Yeah.
things were my worst enemy. And every time they'd be on like even the first or second module, I would start crying before I even did it because just the idea of just sitting there putting my leg up was like
Yeah.
excruciating pain. And then I do remember probably 6 weeks after I was doing them, I could get it up and move it. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even
Wow.
think about it. It still hurts, but it's manageable. And that's when I knew it was working. But yeah, so I would say 3 months though, I was like, I'm in this. It's worked. I have faith in this program fully. So that was good. And then now I totally forget about it.
Yeah. And from what I recall too, I think, well, and what I'm hearing right now, I mean, your boyfriend was there supporting you. Was he a pretty big support system in the injury, or like, did you have support outside of him, or how did you derive that support?
I feel like the people I hang out with are very healthy, and I think
Mhm.
that's one of the biggest things I would say. The support is everything because I mean, my parents, like my mom was even because she's not an athlete and she did have surgery. She's like, "Oh, well, that's what I did. Maybe that's what's going to have to happen." But I know that's her mindset, right? My
Right.
boyfriend has played sports. He's an athlete, so he's like, "No, you got this. Like, it's
That's
fine." And him
awesome.
just being in my space while I was like suffering, and he's had injuries, sports injuries, all that stuff. Not exactly this, but just having somebody doing it with me was crazy because I was like, "All right, I'm not alone. I know he knows what it's like to have a severe injury. Like this is like," and he would even tell me doing what I do for a living. He's like, "You're up here right now. Like you're so in your head."
Right.
Because he would hear my voice out loud. I would be like, "Oh my god, this is gonna take forever, my life," and I'd be victim-y, and then once I started getting in victim mode, it was like I
Yeah.
had to bring myself back to like, wait a second, I'm just in a lot of pain right now, but this is my workout today. I've got this, and I'm gonna be
Yeah.
able to do all this stuff. I would have to remind myself eventually I'll do the stuff I want to do if I stick with this. But the mindset will get you if you don't have some support because it gets lonely.
Yeah, and I think what's very cool is, you see from our perspective, that's why we have set up the private Facebook group because a lot of people don't have the support systems. Potentially, a great boyfriend or partner or something like that, like you did, right? And you can be really strong in your own head. And I know a lot of people who just don't need any support and they just do the program as is. But, that's obviously why we've baked in the community. And we're always trying to share that message like, hey, wealth is behind you right now. And we're trying to push you forward and we're here for you. Um, when you said that he did it with you, are you saying like you guys did the workouts together or?
He came and did like, well, he for I would say the first few workouts because I would just cry, and so he would go
Right.
do lift and be like, "Hey, do you need me to do some of this?" But he didn't even know what they
Right.
were. He's like, "My hips are tight." We both learned. He was like, "I think we need to start stretching," and I'm like, Yeah, because he did them the first probably month that I cried. He sporadically, if he was at the gym, he'd do a few of the exercises with me that I would struggle with.
Hmm.
Um, and just having him there for some of the exercises, it was like relieving. And he's like, some of these are hard though. These are good for you. He's like, you need to, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes him not even doing them, sometimes him being next to me doing his own thing would just be like, all right, he knows I'm struggling, or he'd bring me back to, hey, remind yourself you're injured, because I'd watch him he's lifting, he's doing all this stuff next to me, and I'm like, I want to do
Right.
what you're doing. He's like, you will eventually, you know.
That's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
that's great. Great to have that support. And I think that's one thing that I was thinking about before. When it did take you, it sounds like you had that inflection point with the move that was really difficult, kind of flexing up the
Mm-hmm.
knee. Obviously that can be very tender or horrible for people with sciatica in the interim, right? Until it does start to feel better. So it sounds like you kind of had like a good light bulb moment 6 weeks in. That was maybe the first kind of sign that, like, oh wow, I am getting better. So for you, when you're going through, say, for those first 6 weeks of the program, and I know you were kind of touching on this, like, what would you recommend for people mentally speaking? Because if you have to do something for 40 days and you don't necessarily see the outcome that you're hoping to see, how do you try to see other positive aspects through that journey?
I think there's like two things. I do think I was very aware of checking in with my body, which is hard to, it's a hard thing to do if it's not something you practice. I'm very much a
Mm,
person who's like, how am I feeling? What's good pain? And I think it's confusing, and I would say this in this program.
yeah.
It's hard to be like, what pain? Because doctors scare you, right? Like, don't do that. Don't do that. You're going to hurt yourself more. And I had to remind myself, like, let me slow myself down, do these exercises, do it the way they say, the correct form. Don't rush it. And it's
Hmm.
going to hurt. But if I feel like it's too much, I can break, because I
Right.
don't. So that, and then I would say weeks after, I knew, like I told you about the knee car ones, I knew the ones that hurt me a lot. And I would, like, a week later, I'm like, let me see how it feels this week. And I
Right.
would be more aware and conscious of, it still hurts, but like it's not on the first one anymore. Maybe it's on the second one, like little movements that.
Yeah.
And it's, I think I told you this before, the biggest thing for me at the beginning was I was so heartbroken. Like, when can I actually work out again? When can I actually move my body again?
Hmm.
And the idea of not working out was messing with my mind. And then once I was like, well, you bought this program, you can do it whenever you want. That became my workout. So every time I would go to the gym every day and be like, well, here's my workout today. And that click in my mind was like, it made me more excited, because I just put it right back into my routine. Because at first I didn't have a routine, and that was messing with me, my mental state, my emotional state.
Yeah.
Um, I'm like, well, now I have to do PT. What does that even look like? That, do I have to do PT and then do I work? But oh, wait, I'm not allowed to work out. So it was
Yeah.
like a mind shift of that. But once I was like, if I just commit to this being my workout and that's all I have to do the day, I got more excited to put it in my game plan. And
Yeah.
um, it's just more motivating that way too.
Yeah. I remember having that follow up call, and that seems like such a simple mindset shift, but it was kind of a light bulb moment for me. And I've repeated what you said to people on the phone. I mean, even someone yesterday, his name's Kareem. He's, I think, 28. He lives in the UK, and he has a herniation. And he's like, he was talking about me. He's like, I saw your story. Like, a lot of these things resonated. He's like, I'm an athlete. Like, I want to get back to running. I want to try CrossFit. I want to get to Muay Thai or kickboxing at some point in time. So he comes from an athletic background. And I think, people who do come from some sort of athletic background, they understand the process, like what the process is. Hey, I devote a specific amount of time and also other lifestyle factors towards some sort of movement practice. And that's what I told him. I was like, hey, I know it's not fun to not be running and doing martial arts and CrossFit. Like, I understand that seems a little more fun, but you understand that you've done decades of putting your body in the gym and like going through a movement routine. So what I want you to do for the next few months is just visualize that the Limitless program is now your workout program. It's
Mhm.
not going to feel like a workout at the beginning, but like as you progress through, you'll be like, oh, wow, like I actually am getting back to a lot of the movement, squat, deadlift, push up, pull up, like all of these movements in the program. So I like that you said that, just taking that mindset and being like, hey, this is my workout, this is my routine. Cause then I think it bridges the gap from like, oh, I'm injured, I can't do anything, I can't work out. It's like, no, you actually still can. And we're going to reintroduce stuff, but this is the new workout for now until we can do a little bit more.
Right. That's I love that. Like that was the biggest change at the beginning I made because I was in a victim mentality like, oh, poor me, like I'm not going to be
Mm-hmm.
able to work out, but I am working out. My workout is I had to have grace and patience with myself that I have to accept my workouts aren't going to look how they were because I also threw my back out. And I would
Right.
remind myself that too. Like when I'm like, oh my gosh, all these people next to me are doing their good workouts and I'm over here doing these things that are so slow moving. I'm like, but your back's also out.
Right. Yeah, it's not really fair to like compare yourself there. And I feel like I definitely struggled with that initially. I was 21 when I had sciatica, so it's just like, I mean, it doesn't really matter that I was 21 and you're 30. Like, it still feels much too young. And we have people we just had a member yesterday who's 63 and now he's having sciatica. So, the point being, at every age that you have it, it seems like it sucks, especially when you compare yourself to other people who don't seem to deal with an injury. And that is the thing where like comparing yourself to other people who aren't dealing with that injury, it's not necessarily super helpful. I think you got to somehow figure out a way to get excited about what this injury can teach you. I mean, I could go on and on about like how much of a blessing it was for me. I'm curious if you're at that point now in your journey where like you truly do think that your injury was a blessing, or like if you've learned some incredible things
Yeah.
by going through
I
that.
I definitely think the universe works for us. That's just my mentality. So,
Yeah.
and it's never like, oh my God, why did this happen to me? I'm like, it happens, right? It happens to all of us. And I definitely think it was my sign to slow down. And
Hmm.
the thing I loved about the program too is I was I'm very aware that even when I lift, I'll do stuff sloppy, right? And it was like, oh, well, maybe I need to start making sure my form's correct because I am getting older and I can't just do form bad. And oh, my body's asking me to stretch. Like all the mobility stuff, I know, I've known logically as an athlete, all that, right? It's like, oh yeah, mobility. We need to move. Yeah, okay. But let me just jump into lifting all these heavy weights. And now I love it because I go and I make sure I'm like, hold on, let me take the first 15 minutes. And even if I'm not doing like, because I still do the program still at least once a week sometimes,
Okay.
and I do a lot of the things with just weight now, like have a heavy weight. But some days on my off days or light days, I'll do the program. But when I go to the gym, that's the first thing I'll do is let me do some of the basic exercises in the first modules as a warm up now because it taught my body like you need this. Like it was so good for my body to learn like some of that stuff I did in module 1. I'm like, what is it? It's easy, but it's
Yeah.
hard. And my body was like, you have never done this in your life and taking the time to slow yourself down. And I do. I think it taught me a slowdown and to take
Hmm.
care of my body and not just go get a workout in because that's what you're used to doing, but also like appreciate how your one, I appreciate how my body heals itself, but I
Hmm.
also like appreciated what I learned about my body and checking in with it too.
Yeah, I think pain, it can be, I try to tell this to people, it can be a massive blessing because it like thinking about how people do come out of an injury stronger, like when people say, hey, wealth was life changing, it's like you're trying to think about what that really means. And I think people have these life changing injuries and they get out on the other side, and it's because the injury taught them so many more things that they could have ever imagined. And pain, it can be very constricting, it can be very intense. And through the rehab process, it can make you really slow down and focus on little things that you would have never had to focus on that would be beneficial had you not had that injury. And that's how I feel too, just going through learning all these little skills before, and, what we call body awareness. Like, I think for most people, until they get injured, they don't really have a sense of body awareness. Because if you don't really like need to think about how your body's moving, I know for me, back when I was doing CrossFit, it was like, hey, I have no pain really, like musculoskeletal pain or disc pain. So it's like, I just get stronger by like putting more weight on the bar and like putting more effort into it. Never really thinking about like technique. I know there's a lot of people who do worry about technique and stuff, but I think that's what I see. It does make you slow down, right?
Yeah.
What were some of those things at the beginning of the program that you learned, or even through the program? Like, how would you categorize some of those top three maybe physical learnings with movement, stuff that you were or were not doing?
How tight my body is and how much love it actually needed. Because all the simple stuff, it's like I felt my body needing care, like because
Mhm.
of the slowdown. That was definitely one, because by the end of the program, like when I was in one of the last modules, I was so in like liking what I was doing because I was putting lighter weight. I was
Mhm.
doing stuff where it felt like a little more of a workout. But I could feel like, wow, my body feels good. Like it
Yeah,
feels like because it's like if like I can go lift and yeah, my body feels good. I have energy, I have all the endorphins, and I feel in shape and all that. But sometimes it's like, wow, you're beating me up.
for
you know
sure.
and I feel like that's what the first modules taught me, is like, wow, you're just asking for some more like attention in certain spots and love, and like, hey, we can slow down. It doesn't have to always be this hard stuff and this stuff that's going to make you like muscular or feel strong. It can be just taking care of yourself. I think that was important. And then just in general, that I do see it as a workout now. I think I shifted my mind so much that halfway through the modules, I was like, why did I not think this could be a workout? Like some of the stuff was ended up being like, even when I was feeling better, like hard for me, and I could feel it being good for me once I was doing the movements. Um, and I liked that because I was like, I could feel strength in even the little things.
Right.
And what was I going to say? Something about, oh, okay, like what I totally wish I would have known long time ago out of this program was it strengthened my back so much. And it was crazy because for years I wouldn't lift that much with my back or
Mhm.
my legs, because I would always say, well, like I have pain in that area, but everybody would tell me, well, then be careful lifting. And I'm
Right.
like, well, nobody said, hey, do other things to strengthen that area and then you'll be able to lift more with it. It was like I was taught to avoid that area. And this showed me by slowing down and doing little things to strengthen that area. Now I go in and I lift and I'm like, wow, I can lift. I can lift a lot more with my legs, even though I had a back injury, because I'm not scared of that pain, because I know I'm just, oh, if I strengthen it with these exercises,
Yeah.
that's what's needed to get to do what I want to do. But I was told the opposite, which I think a lot of people are told.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Laundry list. I mean, I was verbatim told never to squat or deadlift or row again. I was like, wait, so like, what am I supposed to do in life? Like nothing. Like just keep your pelvis and low back just stationary and never move it again. And then it's like, okay, you get told stuff like that, and then nothing actionable to address it. So I think a lot of people deal with that fear or those narratives. Like if you have an injured part, you need to avoid, avoid, avoid. And I think what our message is like, hey, we can, if we're under the assumption or understanding that we cannot avoid certain fundamental movement patterns for the rest of our life, like we probably want our low back to be strong. So if we believe that we probably shouldn't avoid something for the rest of our life, we know at some point in time we need to enter back in. So how do we find a proper kind of safe and progressive entrance point into strengthening the body and getting you to build back up? And that's really our whole thought process. on rehab, on recovery, is there is always an appropriate entry point for you to get moving. Like I had someone yesterday on the phone be like, hey, I've been lying in bed for a full month. Like, do I need to keep resting before I start the program? I'm like, module one's going to have you working on probably like less intensive stuff than you're already doing if you're walking. Like if you're walking right now, you probably could do the program because it's going to work on like
Right.
pelvic tilt and scapular stuff and breathing, which you're already doing. So why not just get better at some of these things right now that are going to help support that injury, and we can, ramp it up. So I think a lot of times people take that rest to a very negative level, in the sense where like I just need to keep resting. It's like, dude, you've been resting your back for 5 years now. Like we need to actually strengthen it. We don't need to add insult to injury. Like sure, we can rest it from insulting it continuously, but there's absolutely movements that we can, get an entrance point in, and then you can start breaking down those narratives of like, I can't do this, I can't do this. It's like, yeah, you can.
Yeah. And that's the thing I had to check in with too is I accepted that it was going to hurt pretty much the whole time I did the program, right? Especially the first modules. Every time I went to work out, I'm like, this is going to suck. Like, because I knew it was going to, every exercise hurt me. Like, everything I did, I was almost crying. But after, I always felt a little better.
Yeah.
Like, I'd get home, I'd still have the shooting pain. I'm like, oh, that sucked, but whatever, it's over. I'd shower and be like, okay, like, the pain's not shooting right now. So I always knew like the aftermath, but it was
Right.
just the initial doing it, it hurts. But
Mhm.
along with that too, of I can tell that whole area is strengthened because I used to even lift with my hamstrings, and I could only do it like I'd have to skip my hamstrings because they would stay super sore because that whole back area was so weak. And now I'm like, why didn't people tell me when I started talking about sciatic nerve issues and I started talking about this, like, hey, do these small don't worry about lifting with your back, just do these
Right.
exercises. I was just taught like either you lift or you don't.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's either there's only one way to lift, and it's got to be barbell or dumbbell stuff. And it's the same 10 exercises that everyone does on like a push or pull or whatever. Then you realize, like, oh my gosh, and Limitless has, 150 movements. Like, you could come up with another billion movements or million, like there's so many different ways in which we honestly could accomplish that same goal. And I think people, there's not really one magic exercise. I think and I think there's exercises that are definitely more suitable and not suitable for the individual. But I think the big thing that you learn once you go through the program is you really expose yourself to a lot of different movements. And by exposing yourself and practicing them and putting in 30 minutes a day for 3 months, 4 months, you've built new connections within your mind to muscle. And you're like, wow, this is what my bicep does, or this is what my foot does, or my quad. And this is how I can engage it. And this is how I can feel this. And also, this is how I can desensitize that area. Because if you don't really understand, you can't read these parts of your body, like people just are so sensitized to their pain, and they're always thinking, hey, this is bad pain, this is bad pain, this is bad pain. It's like there are different ways to read that as well. And that obviously, that takes experience.
Right. Which I do because I never want, I know when me and you talk, we talk a lot about like being an athlete and being used to it, but I mean, I believe that the program works for everybody, right? And I think the hard thing I'm guessing this, would be if you're not a person who works out,
Mm-hmm.
it's just difficult because you do have to, it's a commitment. I will say that. You have to be committed to the program. I do believe with this, and that's what I was telling my boyfriend that I was like, anybody who enters the program though and expects to not really
Yeah.
do anything and it not work, of course it's not going to work. It's just like anything in life. You can't say like, oh, it's not working. If you 100% are real with yourself and say, I'm not putting in the 30 minutes a day,
Yeah.
then the program won't work for you. But I promise you it will work if you're like, I'm going to commit to it and actually do what they say. And that's where
Right.
I think there's a lot of room for error because when people think that it's not going to work, it's because, well, I can't do it, or I hurt when I'm doing it, or they're giving
Mm-hmm.
me too much stuff. You'll make excuses all day in your head.
For
until
sure.
you go out and just be like, nope, let me just check in with them to make sure this is normal pain. Let me check in and use my support.
Yeah.
Because I could imagine how difficult that would be, even if you're a person who doesn't really work out on the regular, just to be like committed to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we have the Facebook group. That's why when you enroll in the program, you have that access to us to be like, hey, is this a normal pain? Is this a good pain or a bad pain, in quotes, if you're listening and can't see? Um, because yes, that can be difficult. And I think sometimes people can throw in the like, we have people throw in the towel a little bit earlier than I would like to see for them, but when you're managing like 5,000 members, you can't. I would say our rate of success is really good, so like we have a 30-day money back policy and less than like 4% of people refund. I think that's pretty awesome. One thing was really cool. This gentleman posted in our Facebook group, his name's Kyle, and he posted in the Facebook group uh, 3 days ago, and he started the program in last October of 23, um, for back pain, a decade of back pain. And he started the program, got through like 1 week, and it was hard for him. So he sent an email. It's like, hey, like, I want a refund. It's just not working. So, if I can talk to people, be like, hey, what's not working? And he was open to taking a call. And it was just so awesome because we talked for an hour, and I could just tell he was so fearful and he didn't see a way out of it. And I was just, I was going to give him money if he was like, hey, I don't want to do this, but I wanted to share at least a perspective. I'm like, dude, being in pain is tough. It might take a few months to go through it, but I promise you what you're doing and seeing and feeling right now, that is part of the process. It's not easy, but if you stick with it and commit to yourself with the bigger goal of like, hey, I know you want to go hike with your 5 or 6 year old daughter. I know you want to be an active father. Like, we need to keep those big things in mind. And his mindset was getting in the way of him just getting and executing. And from that conversation onwards, she's like, cool, I'm committing to the program. And we talked on the phone the other day and he thanked me. He's like, dude, you have no idea how much that call meant to me. And I was like, I didn't, I just took that call because that's what I do. And it
Because you
was
believe
just,
in it, though. It's like
yeah,
like I felt your energy when we talked. I'm like, he believes in it. I'm like such a I believe in the things he's saying. Let's just do it. But he must have felt something from you, and then look, it
yeah,
changed his life.
yeah. That's kind of like, I don't know, that almost got me emotional. It's just kind of crazy to feel like I have that privilege. The guy lives in Hawaii, but he's sharing how my conversation, which was not about saving the money, frankly, like when it's like, yeah, we want people, like, we're a business, we're trying to make money, but I could tell I was just like, this dude's really scared. He has a lot of pain. He doesn't have support or anything like that. So I was like, dude, I'm going to hop on the phone with you for an hour and just have a conversation. At the end of it, clearly he felt better. So I think there are a lot of people who do throw in the towel and yeah, go, why was I thinking about this? Yes, it can be very difficult if you don't have that background of understanding the process or understanding these things take time, or you are not active, or your mindset's not in the best place, because that can be tough.
Yeah, and there's just so many emotions that happen the first month of the program because I wanted, and I was never going to quit the program 100%. Once I signed up, I told you on the phone, I'm like, if I commit to something, I commit to something. I know that's how I am. But the first
Mm-hmm.
month, it sucked. I was like sad and frustrated and terrified and scared and worried and like frustrated and helpless and hopeless. But I'm like, here's all my emotions in this first month, but like I'm still gonna stick with it because I know I have to feel all this while I'm in it. It's not gonna go anywhere. I can't do this for a week and expect to be like, wow, I feel great. Like that's not realistic to anything. And I knew that. But it's hard not to throw in the towel when you're like, oh my God, like I just want to give up. But the reality is, I kept thinking, if you give up on something like that, like where are you going to be though?
Oh
You're
my
not going to be
gosh.
in a better place if you give up on the program. You're just going to be down a different route that's probably worse for you. So that's what I used to tell myself too. Like, this is my only option. If in my mind I convince myself this is my only option, then then I have to keep doing
Yeah,
it.
this is plan A, B, C, D, E,
Yeah,
F.
like there's no
Yeah.
plan B because plan B to me was plan surgery. And I'm
Right.
like,
Yeah.
B is a lot. I'm going to say that's not even existent. So if this doesn't
Right.
work, but I was so committed, like this is gonna work, and I was telling myself it would. Because if you convince yourself it's not, then that mindset can go down a scary anxiety path of the future.
For
So
sure. Yeah. And I think, there's absolutely an aspect to like believing and, just working with a positive mindset and being able to come back every single day, even when you can't see the work, and having your bigger goal in mind. And also at the same point in time, like if the program, there is a specialness to the way that the program is laid out and the competency and the study of pain and biomechanics and why stuff's laid out. So I think, of course, you need to have both. You need to have like a great physical program and product and service where it's like, this makes sense. And this is why we're doing these moves and these workouts and loading these muscles and joints in this way. And then also simultaneously, you need to be able to pair that mindset, right? And I think the mindset I typically see with people is the more challenging thing. Or conversely, when I talk to people on the phone, I can just tell, like with you, I was like, mindset's there, boom. Like I know it's going to be hard, but her mindset's strong enough to where the physical will come. When I have conversations with people where it's like the mindset's tough, it's like, hey, I'm just talking to you for 30 minutes. I want you to enroll because I think this program's going to help. But like, I can't right now in this moment change an entire lifetime of narratives that you've built up in your head.
that
And
part.
that's what's difficult. That's where I feel for people who are stuck in a chronic pain cycle. And like
Yeah,
to
that's
undo that work is crazy.
it is. And I mean that's what I do for a living though. So
Mm-hmm.
that's like my job is literally that. So and if there's any advice I can give to anybody on this coming from me as mental health counseling and all that stuff that I deal with, it's and I trained my brain like that when I was in it is I positive mindset is key, but the reality is you're going to have negative emotions. And you
Mm,
have to be like what I just labeled all my emotions. There was not one day I wasn't frustrated. There was not one day I didn't feel defeated and sad and scared, but I was very aware I'm feeling all of this, but I've got this.
mm,
And a lot of people want to feel happy when and they think that's positive. I'm like, no, positivity is just like the second part I told myself is like, this sucks and I got this because it's still gonna suck and you're still gonna have all this negative feeling.
mm,
You can be emotional and still be positive about your experience. A lot of people are like, everything's negative feeling, so everything sucks and my life is over. And you have to get those in line. Like
interesting.
it can't be negative with negative emotion. It can be negative emotion with a positive mindset, and that's
Okay.
hard.
That's really interesting. So the positive mindset is more so like, is that how you see your long-term kind of goals and belief systems? That's the overarching, like, hey, this is how I want to think and this is what I know to be true over the next, time period. But an emotion is more so kind of a day-to-day or a temporary feeling, and you can acknowledge that you're currently not feeling positive about something, but then also battle that with a positive mindset. Or how do you see that?
Yeah, well, I'm an emotional base. My clinic is we're emotional based, but and
Emotional
that's just
base.
how I train myself because I believe emotions run everything. Like our world is, we're humans. Humans are emotional.
Mm-hmm.
So I always say you can be like when I called myself out for being victimy, a
Right.
victim mentality will get you nowhere because you're feeling negative emotions, but you're also saying like, woe is me, like feel bad for me, like my life is over. And you're already like down the rabbit hole of the negative mindset, which would be anxiety. I would call it anxiety
Right.
brain of like, what if I can, what I did at the beginning? What if I never walk again? What if I never lift again? What if I never do this? My world is over. Poor me.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, wow, I'm terrified right now and I'm scared and I don't know what's going to happen, but I know I'm going to figure it out. And I
Mm.
know I've got this and it just sucks right now. And I'm going to look for ways to find the good in this, but also I know I'm sad because you're able to feel your emotions still without going down the pits of hell with yourself.
Right.
And that means you're able to stay here and deal with the thing at hand in the present moment. Because the reality is, yeah, the whole time I was doing the program, the first month, I was miserable.
Right.
But I was also aware how I was sad, so sad because I couldn't do anything I loved.
Hmm.
I was heartbroken. Like I'd come home and be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I don't have my I had a stressful day at work and I can't go on my walk." So victim mentality would be like, "Well, now I just have to sit on the couch the rest of my life," right?
Right. Right.
Or I could be like, "Damn, like it sucks I can't go on a walk, but it's okay. Like I feel a little bit okay today, better than yesterday. Or let me go sit outside in the sun. And one day I am going to be able to move again because I'm going to be committed to this program." But that doesn't mean I'm still not sad,
Right. Yeah.
right?
No, that's a great thing, right? You're like, hey, I'm really not happy with where I'm at currently,
Mm-hmm.
but what can I do to make sure that my current feelings and emotions do not run the rest of my life?
That part. Yeah. And that's what a lot of
And
people
then,
do. I do think that's when you throw in the towel because that's the
mhm,
victim, woe is me. And then that's going to put you in like such a hole of like, my world's over. And then
yeah,
you give up. That's the give up.
yeah, yeah. It's always interesting talking about this because I'm trying to always understand how to communicate that better. Because like for me, like what was helpful was like, hey, like what else can I do? And just knowing the path that I did not want to go down was like, I don't know exactly where I'm going. I'm just not going that way. So I'm going to try to figure out and can control what I can control. I know people have different thought processes on that, right? But I think that's ideally what we're trying to help people out with is like, here's a very comprehensive program that you can work through despite being in pain. Any, like, I mean, we have, I'm sure you've seen, like, it's a lot of disc injuries, but shoulder impingement, labral tear, SI joint pain, like neck, people, car crashes. Like, I mean, you look at the reviews, it's honestly just insane what
Yeah.
happens with people and how the body heals with a kind of head to toe, like really good laid out program. But again, it doesn't happen. It doesn't get all done in one day. So I think that's the big thing. Like, I just need to keep coming back and giving some time to myself. And I know you were saying like it takes commitment. I agree with that. I know we're in a world right now where like doing something every single day for 30 minutes seems like a crazy sense of commitment. Part of me is just like, oh my gosh, like that's sad, because I'm like, that's not even much commitment at all. But you still have to be consistent with it every day.
Yeah. And I would say too and just to add this, there was a big component because I know a lot of people can stress finances, right?
True,
And
true.
I will put this out here. And I told you this when my back felt better.
Yeah.
I would pay for this program so much more than what I did because I remember doing the math with you on the phone because I was like, if I'm going to pay for PT 3 times a week, have to drive there, not know the people, have no connection, and spend that much money, I'm like, that was a no brainer for me to pay the amount of money you guys ask. I'm like, you guys are great because it was totally worth every penny. But I think a lot of people are scoping that out too. Like,
Hmm.
is it worth paying that much money? Is it going to work? Like they're not knowing if it's going to be worth the return, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it will be if you think about the other routes you have to go down.
Yeah, for sure. I think I didn't have to do any selling with you. I mean, you were selling yourself to me. I was like, that's exactly right. That's exactly a good way to look at it. It's like, oh my gosh, medical bills, especially out of pocket, can go so fast. It's insane for what you get from it too. And I think like a lot of times it is very transactional. Maybe you show up to an appointment and there's like a lot of money behind imaging and screening and diagnostics and stuff. Um, and then like you walk out and you're like, wait, what did I learn? Like, am I any smarter with my own body or any more empowered or any stronger or are my muscles and joints feel better? Like, am I eating better? Am I sleeping better? It's like, no. So it's not to say that there's not a place for it, but like the knowledge that you gain through an injury, I like that is, it's the cheesy thing, but it's priceless. Like we
Yeah.
know our program is very, very fairly priced. Um, for what it is. Like I think it's a steal for anyone, but
I
we're
definitely
biased.
would say
But
it's a steal. I would say that for sure.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I like, I bought this program from Andrew years back and it's just like at the time I was just like, okay, I don't even know what this is going to look like. And then going through it, I'm like, dude, I would have given you everything in my bank account to
Same.
just know that I had my life back, you know. Thankfully I haven't had to give him everything in my bank account, but I work with him now. But yeah, it just, I mean, that's also why it's like our health is our wealth. That's what we call it. Um, I think we've talked about a lot of great things here. Do you have, I know you were kind of like going through some of the physical learnings, some of the mental learnings, anything else that we didn't touch on, or something that you think like you back then would have liked to know now?
I don't think so. I think that support of just like telling people keep going, because keep going. Don't throw in the towel. Just keep going and keep getting through it, because I have said this when me and you have talked. Like, I just can't thank you guys enough.
Mm.
And I can't thank you because I know you are like just such a vibe in the way you talk to people, and you don't have to do any convincing. You just generally, I can just, you have always just been who you are. And I will say, I don't know who else you work with, but like you are part of the reason too I signed up, because you didn't have to do anything. I could feel your confidence in the program, and I trusted you because of that. And I
Hmm.
think that's what the whole program has, is like, it seems like everyone's been through stuff. Um, and I can tell you guys care so much to be like, just keep going. Just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you guys want people just to keep going. And that's hard when you're dealing with people who we get stuck because we want a quick fix. And
yeah.
I would suggest for everybody doing this, it's not going to be a quick fix, but it's definitely going to be worth it. And um, keep going. So,
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, no, it is. I I still, you know, I have to pinch myself and be like, wow, this is like what I get to do on a day-to-day basis where I'm making a living, like working with Andrew, who helped me get out of my injury, and Katie was there as well. You know, it was Andrew's program at the time, but it's just like, you know, at the time I was studying engineering in college. And again, just I have to laugh and kind of pinch myself and be like, you know, I thought I was such a victim at the time because, you know, I'm 21 and I can't get out of bed. And of course, at that time, it was just like, this is
your
fucking
world's over
bullshit.
at that time, though.
Yeah.
You're like,
And
this is
it
my
did.
life.
I mean, and really, like for that time period,
Yeah.
um, it, yeah, in that time period, it's over. I can't say I miss feeling sciatica. I'm so happy, knock on wood, that I don't have that anymore. And it's crazy to say, like, but I'm so thankful for this injury and just what it's taught me. And then being able to connect with you, and then also have you, you know, share your story, because you did have a very serious decision to make. Do I want to go get another injection? Do I want to do surgery, or do I want to buy like this online program? You know, like, how do I trust an online program?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But hey, I would trust it every day because it works.
Oh my gosh. Well, it works, but you're also a model for, you know, the type of client that we really want to be able to help out. Um, it works, but it's not our doing. It was your doing, and you had to go through, you know, all the work, and we never want to take that away from you. So
All the pain. And I will say this before we end, because I know
yeah,
it's probably the time, but the thing I love is I'm not scared to get hurt again, because
that's awesome.
I'm so in the mindset of like, if for some reason I would slip another disc or something would happen to my back, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I know now, like, I'm so relieved at the idea that I know how to heal this,
Hmm.
that I'm not worried about. I'm like, yeah, guess what? When I get older and something else happens to my back like this, I'll be like, all right, I got this. This sucks, you know? So
Right.
that's what I want to thank this program for, because now I have confidence. Like, no matter what kind of back injury I have, unless it's, of course, I know some people have injuries that they have to have surgery because of other things, but
Hmm.
I have the
Yeah.
confidence that I can heal it because of you guys. So I appreciate that.
That's something that we didn't touch on. I have a few more. I don't have to go anywhere right now if you still have a
Okay,
few
yeah,
minutes.
that's fine.
Okay, cool. That brings up a really good point. I mean, just like I do want to ask a few questions about like what you're excited about moving forward, but you brought up a really good point, and why we try not to market to pain free, but free of pain. Of course, right now I'm sciatica pain free. In the past 6 years, like I've run a marathon, I've run some half marathons, and I've pushed it really hard. Like I've kind of injured my hip and my shoulder from benching. That being said, my I think time to recovery is I mean, who knows? Like, I feel like it's cut in half or, more than that. And also the mental anxiety and fear. It's like, hey, I've done something crazy now. I know this is part of life. I'm pushing it. Injuries are not happening too often to me because I think I have a great training program and I'm in tune. But also when stuff happens, mentally I'm not going to be thrown in, in a ditch, and physically I'll be able to attack that. So I feel like I am free of pain. And also 99% of the days since my herniation, like I haven't had anything crazy, which is I'm so grateful for. But if you were to get injured or something, like what would you do? Like how would you see that if you were to say have a knee injury or shoulder injury or something like that?
Exactly what we've already talked about.
Yeah.
I feel like I've always known, like, it's different to know something logically and know, like, oh, yeah, that's the process. With me, I'm like, that's how emotions process. With this stuff, I'm like, that's how the body heals. But, like, once you go through it, it's just like everything in life, right? Like, when it's a first time, you're like, what is this? It's terrifying. And then once you go through it, this is still gonna suck,
Mm-hmm.
but like I'm confident that I'll figure it out because I've already done it once. And that's how I have felt before, because I did something the other day, and like now I will say I'm more cautious when I like go to bend down. I am different with how I pick things up and the way I maneuver my back just because of, injury.
Mm-hmm.
um, but I was like, oh my God, I'd be so pissed if I threw my back out again. And me and my man started laughing. And I'm like, but my thought process after that was like, well, at least I know I can figure it out. Like,
And you
it
can get
would
through it.
suck. Yeah.
Yeah, knowing that you can get through something and how you would do that again, I think that is just a big piece. That's why there's so much fear and anxiety around injury, is people just really don't know that there's a great path forward.
Mhm.
Um, it's, we see people post all sorts of stuff in the Facebook group. I mean, we've had people like go through injuries and then the lessons that it taught them, like they leave abusive relationships or they change jobs or they get the confidence to do various things in life because of the pain that they went through. So I think, the process that we've talked about, it is all the same. I think it's just, pain is one very difficult challenge that you'll have. I'm sure, I'm 27, about to turn 28. Like, I'm sure I'm going to have a lot more challenges, but having the confidence that I went through something really, really difficult, it'll be interesting to see how my herniation and that dark spot compares to future challenges, but no doubt those will be ahead. So I feel grateful for that. We'll wrap up with this, but what are you excited about, moving forward now that you kind of have that experience in your belt, like whether that be fitness, kind of curious too, like what you're doing with your business. It's all online therapy.
Yeah, so with business stuff, I have a mental health clinic, so I'm
Okay.
expanding. We're just growing, and I have like an online program in the works with one of my business partners for another business, but
Nice.
um, yeah, so we're excited building that up. But so with my business, since we're just always busy, we deal with the mental health stuff. We deal with like everything.
Hmm.
So that's why I enjoy you guys too, because I can tell you care, and there's, you know, trying to convince somebody what's good for them is hard because you can't convince people, just have to do.
Right.
So with business stuff, I'm doing a lot of therapeutic stuff, but I always say I help people lead them to their souls because I get them out of your head. All the stuff in our brain that we just talked about, I'm like, my job is to get you out of here and following this more. And that's like
Mm.
the body, it's a body mind thing too. It's like if you can touch in with how you feel and what's going on inside of you, you just are healthier. So
Right.
we're helping a lot of people. My clinic's helping a lot of people, so we love that. And in the sense of what I'm doing, in the sense of personal, um, with my injury being healed, I've just been enjoying getting back to the stuff I love. Like, I live in Florida, so when the weather started getting like nice in the
Oh, that's
spring, I was like,
awesome.
oh my gosh, I can like, I was so where I love to walk everywhere. I love to be outside, and I couldn't for those months that I was injured. I was like, oh my gosh, and um, I lift heavy again, and I honestly, even when I started feeling better in this program, I still did not think I was going to lift heavy. I thought I was going to be like, wow, when I get back to lifting, at least I'll be able to lift again eventually, but I'll probably just always stay light because I'll be worried. And
Right.
now I have to be told, like, everybody's like, hey, be careful. Like, don't push it. You know, you had an injury. And I'm like, yeah, but like, I feel good. Like, I'm ready
Yeah,
to lift heavy. So I've been doing that. I've been doing everything that I love. I guess it's the little things too you take for granted. Like I said, even just walking and doing stuff like that. I couldn't even sit down. Like
I
when my,
know.
like sitting down was actually the worst for me. I would just have shooting pain everywhere when I sat down. So sometimes I'll be doing stuff like, wow, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't sit, and I'm definitely taking all that in. But I'm
Yeah,
excited to get back to doing all the things I love, which is this is totally off topic, but I have a dog and my dog tore his knee. Okay, look at how crazy is this? And it's funny what you guys teach because my sister-in-law is like all holistic. She teaches a lot of nutrition. She has like dietitian, nutrition background, whatever.
yeah,
And she was like, don't let your dog have surgery. Let his body heal by itself. And I was like, that's crazy. That's the program I just went through for myself. My dog is now 3 months at, and he hasn't gotten surgery. I just been giving him like all this nutrition stuff. And I didn't
yeah.
think he'd ever be able to chase the ball again. But now my dog is living his best life
Hey,
because his
there you
body healed
go.
himself. We built his muscle up in his knee and his knee has healed. So like
Yeah,
it's just doing the same thing as humans do. But that's
yeah,
pretty much all. I'm just excited to be doing the stuff that I wanted to do and never thought I would do again.
yeah. Maybe there's a market for a dog limitless program or dog
I'm
rehab
telling
program.
you, I did research. I put him in a dog brace, a knee brace, and was taking him on walks.
Yeah,
He could barely walk, and now he's like back to himself. But I was giving him collagen and putting him on a healthier like diet, and I'm like, wow, your body just healed just like mine did. How crazy!
I
And
love that.
I refused surgery. I refused medication for him too, and he's back to normal. So,
Are there any like you know, mental? So you call it a mental health clinic? Is that what it is?
mhm.
Okay. What are like, obviously we see a lot of issues that we're helping people go through. What are some of the biggest challenges mentally you think people are facing that you're having to get people to work through? And like, I know that's a loaded question. Like, why are people so
Yeah. Well,
in this
that is
turmoil? Yeah.
like a loaded question, but I would say everybody has their own mindset based off their own history. But
Hmm.
to be honest, it's exactly what I was telling you about in the sense of labeling your emotions. A lot of people are emotionally dysregulated, and people don't want to feel pain, whether it's physical or emotional, right? So you guys are on the physical aspect, but why it's also an emotional thing for your mental health really struggles more when your physical health is suffering. That's why people that suffer with chronic pain, it is hard because you have to normalize frustration and sadness. You have to normalize it. And people are like, I don't want to feel this way. Just
Right.
like anything, if you expose yourself to it, then it normalizes in your body. So when people are like, I don't want to be sad, I'm gonna take I don't want to feel my pain, so I'm gonna pop pills.
Yeah.
But then you're just numbed out. It's the same with emotional pain. So people struggle feeling emotions and then they're dysregulated because they don't know how to feel it. Because then when you feel it, it feels really big. Like,
Yeah. Right. And that's, yeah, I mean, you can see why getting off meds that you're addicted to or whatever, like to calm you down and then you feel those feelings for the first time, like that would be insane.
right, right. So that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing I would say people just struggle with is the world, most of the world, just because it's shifting now because mental health is
Hmm.
becoming more of a thing people are looking at and it's becoming more normalized. But um, the old school way is just suck it up, get over it, instead of like, hey, I don't have to, I'm still sad about it. I'm allowed to be sad and frustrated and all of this stuff. And if you allow yourself to feel stuff, then it gets easier to just accept the emotions and move through them instead of let me just avoid them. Just like the pain, if you expose yourself to pain, pain gets better.
There's something super interesting about that. But, are you kind of familiar with the story of Oxycontin and like that whole ordeal?
What story? I know a lot of drug stories.
Yeah. So, well, just like, I guess kind of talking about cultural. differences with pain. But the Sackler family, who developed OxyContin, and I think 500,000 Americans have died from Oxy since it was released, and obviously billions and billions and billions of dollars. I think they just settled a lawsuit or something for 12 bill, and then I think they accepted it, and then the judge was like, "Wait, no, we're taking it back." Destroyed people's lives, but when they were developing OxyContin, they were trying to get it like past or like into the European market. I think it was like Germany and something else, maybe a few other countries. I can't remember. But the Germans did not let Oxy come into the market, which was going to be great for the company, because they were thinking like, hey, if we can get it into some of the more stringent countries in the world on drugs, like it's going to just be a slam dunk in America. And the Germans didn't allow OxyContin to come into Germany because culturally they are they feel like we should feel pain. I think they're more tolerant to it. So that was really interesting, So then obviously America got ravaged by Oxy, which is
Yeah.
insane and
And then America's
horrible.
like, we'll take it. Don't worry. We don't want to feel any pain. We'll just numb ourselves out.
Yeah, and also, I get that, and then you look at like what they were doing. I mean, the manipulation, and they were paying doctors to lie and saying it wasn't addictive, which obviously it was. So you had
Yeah.
people being prescribed oxy for horrible things, but there is a cultural thing here. I think we don't want to feel pain,
Yeah.
and we can make a lot of money off of that.
That I think there's yes a cultural thing and a definitely an I would say old school mentality. It's like a weakness if you're like you should just be tough around everything, but that
Mm,
doesn't mean you're not feeling it. It just means you're trying not to show people it and you're not allowing yourself to feel it. But I think the scary thing of the world too, and the stuff that we talk about with healthcare in general, is there it is a business and it's scary. And that's why I tell my clients all the time too, like make sure you feel out your doctors. I am going to say that when you go to your doctors, if you don't feel like they're empathetic and you have a connection and they care about you, fire them. I don't care. I know a lot of doctors. My friends are doctors. I've been to doctors, and I refer to doctors. I only refer to doctors who I know care. But the reality is, the world is a business, and, the stuff that we're just talking about, drugs and stuff, or like, we're quick to be training quick fixes is a business,
right,
but that doesn't mean longevity. It's good for us. And you have to know that that person across from you is being empathetic and looking out for your best interest. And that's hard to scope out when you're like, I want to trust my doctor, right? Because that's my doctor's job. But
right.
you feel that connection with them. And I always would suggest like go to different doctors, get different recommendations, because some doctors do push pills and they're not going to say, hey, go to the wealth program and
Yeah,
go do some of that, and then we'll see how you feel, and then we'll reconsider. They're like, oh, you're in pain, yeah, let me refer you to the surgeon because I'm going to get money off of you. And that's it's sad, but it's the reality of things that happen. So that's why I always say tread lightly with that as well.
yeah. The last conversation I had with remember Dylan, he's 29, and same thing. Told he needed surgery. Scheduled the surgery for like April of 2024. Started wealth in January, so he's like, "Hey, if it doesn't work, I'll get that surgery." And he's called his doctor 6 to 8 weeks within the program. Is like, "Hey, cancel the surgery. I don't need it." And he said the doctor was mad at him. Like, wait, hold on. Like, you're canceling? Not like, wow, Dylan, congrats. This is incredible. I'm so happy for you. He's like, wait, what? Like, you're canceling it? You don't want the surgery? Are you sure? Like, this can't be true. And
Yeah,
he's like,
isn't
I
that
told you I'm
wild?
feeling better.
It should be
Yeah,
like, oh my gosh, where did you go? Let me have that program's number so I can send people that way.
right. Let me try to understand why what I found on the MRI has changed, and why when I told you you were not going to fix this without surgery, you're
Right.
telling me you're feeling better and you don't have pain. So you're either lying to me or you're telling the truth, and that's really challenging what I'm saying. Maybe I should look into that.
Yeah, yeah. And feel people out. Feel
Yeah,
people out. Which again, I am gonna say it's a sad reality of the world, because and I will have empathy for doctors, because some doctors are trained like that, right? They're like,
for sure.
this is the training, or they're too busy and too overworked that they don't have the time. So I'm like, find somebody who or I would say go referral based.
For
Like if
sure.
you know somebody,
Yeah.
like go referral based. So
Referral based. Yeah. And, I think it's a dynamic system in which, there's a lot of great people out there who are like dealing with patients who don't give a crap about changing their lifestyle. And they could say all of the best things in the world. And they're like, I'm not going to follow that. So, like, maybe in their next mind, the next best thing would be to ease the pain for a little day,
yeah,
And then also, so it goes both ways. You have like yourself, all you really wanted, and it makes it really easy for us to align with people like you, where like if we can get the program in your hands or someone who's like, hey, give me the thing to do and I'm going to do it. That's just like an incredible connection.
hmm
All
yeah.
right, Les.
That's the hard part because again, commitment. You have to commit to it, and so
You do. You do. Well, thank you for your commitment. And oh my gosh, yeah, thank you so much for trusting us. And good luck on helping save people's minds.
thank you. You good luck on helping people save their bodies because that impacts their minds. So that makes my job.
Absolutely. It's all back and forth, right? That's what we're
We're
doing.
all
So
full circle. It's all
yeah,
holistic here. So
yeah. Well, we'll have to do this again another time to see where you're at in another 6 months or another year. It'll be
yeah,
cool.
check base with me. I promise you, I'm going to be implementing this program, and I'm still going to be doing it. But we're gonna fingers crossed. I'm
There
hoping
you
all's
go.
good the next time we talk.
All right. Awesome, Les. Well, take care.
All right,
All
have a
right.
good one. Bye.
Yeah. All right. Bye.